Hey guys, thanks so much for joining me today. I'm super excited about today's video. I have a special guest with me. Mark Webster is a professional travel photographer and filmmaker, and he's going to be on this video critiquing some of my travel photos. So I'm super excited to see what he has to say about them. As you know, I'm always excited about learning something new and getting better and better every day. So I'm really excited to take his advice on my next adventures. So stay tuned to check out what he has to say. And at the end, I'm going to ask him a few questions about travel and photography. Let me know down in the comments what you think of this video. Give it a like as well. Consider subscribing to this channel for more photo and travel related content. Thank you so much for being here and joining me today. I really appreciate you taking your time to look at all my photos and critique them. You can be as harsh as you want. I won't be offended, I promise. I want to do better all the time, so go ahead, let me know what you think of them. But yeah, if you want to introduce yourself, let us know a bit more about you.
What's going on, everyone? My name is Mark Webster. I am a commercial videographer and photographer based in Alberta, Canada. I own a company called Roam Creative. So we do a lot of travel destination marketing for airlines and tourism boards. Unfortunately, we're in quarantine right now, so I'm at home in Edmonton, but I'm excited to be on this recording today to do a little critique. I think it's going to be fun to look at some photos. Photo number one, I love the color contrast between the bright yellow with the sort of desaturated everything else with the white snow and the black. I'm a huge fan of contrast in my images, so I think the level of contrast is really good. And I think the motion blur in the background is a nice touch just to conceptually have a fast-moving background with the stillness of the foreground, which I think is pretty cool. So good job on this photo. It's a very unique image because that sort of scene is very hard to reproduce. It's certain circumstances of a fresh snowfall in the springtime.
Yeah.
It looks cool. I dig it.
Excellent. Where do you know where that photo was taken?
I'm going to. It's in Edmonton, right?
No.
No.
It is
New
not.
York?
It's New York, yes.
Okay. I was just double checking if it was Edmonton or if the yellow cab aspect of it was.
Yeah, I took so many photos and I got a whole bunch of cars in the background, but as soon as I got the two yellow cabs, I was like, yes, that's it.
Yeah,
the two yellow cabs.
Yeah, that's cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, that's sweet. Number two. Is this legislature? Or no, where is this?
This is in London.
London. Okay, cool. Black and white looks cool. I think was this taken on film?
No, but this was taken quite a while ago.
Okay. Was it shot on film though, or is it
No,
digital?
It wasn't shot on film. It's digital.
Okay. Yeah, I think most likely it was an older camera, so the dynamic range is most likely limited.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a black point is a little bit distracting, just because it's so deep and dark. It'd be nice to lift those shadows a bit, or expose the image a little bit brighter, just so you could see more of the detail, or crop I'm sort of visualizing a portrait image focused on the building in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I find the right side very dark and a little bit distracting. So that would be some suggestions for that photo, but it's cool. I dig black and white, especially with architecture. I think black and white always complements the lines and sort of the textures of buildings, so that's what I like about that photo.
Excellent. So, funny story about this is I actually went to architecture school.
Did you?
And my background and degree is technically in landscape architecture and environmental design. So This was actually part of a school trip where we went to Europe and we were looking at a bunch of different parks and cities and basically studying them.
Cool.
So we went on a little architectural adventure.
Let's move on to number three.
Number three.
Okay, where's this taken?
This is in Seattle.
Seattle. I've been to Seattle a couple times. I did not know this exists in Seattle.
Yeah, we just kind of stumbled across it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love the scale of it with the little person, little kid in the front, and then the giant giant spray. I think it could have been cool to have like a. It's hard to have like a slower shutter when you have like a fast moving, like obviously that kid's running around. A little bit slower shutter to get some like nice motion blur out of the fountain. I think that could be cool. And then what I've been doing a lot of recently is trying to like Photoshop distractions out of photos. So like the people sitting on the side bench and the garbage can on the left, and the three kids on the right side that are sort of on the other side of the fountain. I find it just cleans up the image, and it draws your eye into like if there's only one subject, your eye's going to focus on him and how he relates to the space, versus looking around. And your eyes sometimes get a little bit distracted by other elements in the photo. So that could be an easy, quick edit, just to clean up the photo. But I think it's cool. I like the colors. The greens look good. Sometimes greens are hard to edit, and they either look too yellow or orange or blue or neon. So I like the tone of that. The exposure looks awesome, and it's a cool photo to look at. The scale is like crazy to me.
Yeah.
Because he I'm not sure if it looked the same in person, but he looks tiny, and this thing looks like 100 feet tall fountain. So.
Yeah, and it actually kind of dips down into like a little bowl, and the fountain's located in the middle of this little bowl, and it plays music. So it was a really interesting space to be in. So just hear music and the fountain. It was pretty neat.
Yeah, that's super cool. I will, next time I'm in Seattle, I must
find
check
the fountain.
This thing out. Yeah, actually. Cool.
Okay.
Number 4. Cool little neon. Where's this?
This is in Portland.
Okay.
At a donut shop.
Is that Voodoo? Yeah,
Voodoo. It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I find it a little bit hard to read the sign, but that makes sense. I love the neon lights. I like the color contrast of the pink neon with the blue sky, and it looks like it was sort of blue hour-ish. Like everything's a little bit darker, which I think is smart, especially when you're photographing lights. Neon does not look good when you're shooting it in the middle of the day. And even at nighttime too, you seem to lose everything else. So I think that was a good time to shoot the image at. I think the straightening is sometimes a little bit distracting with the corner of the building. I think right now there's like a straight line, like the vertical line is on the building behind it. So maybe just straightening off the photo to make the corner of the building, because that's the most dominant line. Try it. It's a hard angle, I'm sure. You've probably tried a couple different ideas to straighten the photo, because the side of the sign on the right side looks pretty straight.
Yeah.
And like different people see straightening differently. Like with my business partners, I was like, why are you straightening to that line? It should be this line or whatever. So I would like to see it straightened to the corner of the building, just to see what it looks like. It's just hard from that vantage point because you get converging lines. So one thing to play with too would be the straightening in Lightroom. Sometimes when you're doing architecture stuff, you can flatten photos. So if you're pointing up at a skyscraper and you get these converging lines, Lightroom can do a decent job of pulling them flatter, or making the image look flatter, as if the photo is taken from higher up instead of like a lower vantage point going up. So that might help get rid of some of the distortion, but that's out of your control of the photo that you take. So that would be some suggestions for that. But I think it's a cool photo. I love the sign. I love the colors, and the textures of the building.
Awesome. One thing I liked about this one is I feel like everyone takes a straight on picture of the sign to say they're at Voodoo Donut. And so I wanted to take one that was not a straight on of the sign and it was something different.
Totally.
And I didn't even notice until after I took it, but on the side of the sign, if you zoom
Yeah.
in, there's a whole bunch of little voodoo logos and a little texture
Yeah.
there, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah. No, I can see that. That's cool. I've heard very good things of Voodoo Donuts. I've never been myself, so
It's just so much fun. And you can
yeah.
go there at 2 in the morning. So 2 a.m. donuts
Even
is a good
better.
thing. It's a good thing.
That's the move.
Yeah.
No one wants a donair. We need donuts.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, number 5,
Yeah.
music festival. I love music festivals. I shot Bomb Fest in Edmonton last summer.
Nice.
A 3-day festival. It was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, this summer's was canceled, which sucks because I was supposed to be filming that as well. But love music festivals. I love the energy, and that's what I can see in this photo. Everyone seems to be stoked on where they are and having a good time. So I think part of photography is telling that story and capturing the energy of a photo, and I think you did a good job of that.
Thank you.
The photo seems a little bit grainy.
Yeah.
So
This is an older one.
Older camera.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this was my D200 and like the kit lens, and I didn't really know exactly what I was doing. But
yeah, that's all part of learning, and technology has been insane over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Like I started on D9, D2, and compared to a Sony mirrorless now, it's like
crazy different.
It is night and day difference in technology. And like I remember shooting 800 ISO was like the grainiest thing in the world on these old DSLRs, and then now we shoot like 6400 and it looks clean. So
yeah,
totally understand, but I love the energy that you captured, and that's more important than quality. I think is capturing authenticity, and that's what you did in this photo. So
excellent. Well, thank you. Yeah, that was lots of fun. That was actually in Panama at Carnival.
Okay. Crazy.
So it was an interesting party to be at.
Yeah.
All right.
6. Little bridge. Where's this?
This is a little ways outside of Portland. This is the Bridge of the Gods on the Pacific Crest Trail.
Okay, cool.
So it goes between Oregon and Washington. And you cross the bridge.
I haven't been to Oregon yet. I've heard amazing things.
It's so nice. I love Oregon.
It's been on the list.
It's great. It's really good.
This bridge looks crazy. I think it'd be interesting to, obviously dangerous, not always recommended, but being in the middle of the road and having a center frame composition is just like a cool visual, because then you get the converging lines that go deep into the photo and it really draws your eye in.
Yeah.
Versus the way it's composed now, there's a little bit more to look at, which is cool because you can see the surroundings. But if you like just want to photograph the bridge, shooting it from the middle of the road, of course being safe and not getting hit by a car,
hopefully
could be cool. I did one in Edmonton on the new bridge when it was like still under construction. I went out before there were cars and stuff, and it was just a really cool visual because you see all these lines and convergent lines down into the middle.
Yeah.
So you can create some really engaging compositions. So that's like the image I'm seeing in my head when I see this photo.
Awesome. Excellent. Yeah, this is a very interesting bridge because all the hikers on the Pacific Crest Trail cross over this bridge, and there's even like basically instructions for crossing the bridge. So it's a toll bridge, so all the cars have to pay, but you get instructions for crossing the bridge. And just for the heck of it, we walked across one way and turned around and came back the other way.
Nice.
It's a very interesting little walk over the bridge because there's no like pedestrian lane. You're just walking in the same lane the cars are on. I was going to say,
where's the sidewalk?
Yeah, there is no sidewalk. So the rule is you have to walk on the side where the traffic is coming towards you so you can see the traffic. Yeah, so you're walking on the opposite side.
Safest.
So
yeah.
But yeah, we did make it all the way across and back, and it's like this metal grate at the bottom. So I was just terrified the whole time that I was going to drop something and it would go right through the grate.
How long is the bridge?
It's pretty long. It took us a decent amount of time to cross. Going over by car, it's maybe like 30 seconds, but if you're walking across it takes a bit. But
yeah, oh, that's cool.
Got tons of good views along the way.
Yeah, looks like it.
Next one, we're getting into waterfalls.
I love waterfalls.
Which I love. I am obsessed with waterfalls.
Is this also in Oregon?
Yes, it is.
Nice. Yeah, well, I've never been. It's on the bucket list for sure.
Yeah, this is in Silver Falls State Park. There we went on a hike and saw 7 different waterfalls on the same hike.
That's
so
crazy.
You can see lots of different waterfalls.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I like the composition in this photo. Some people don't like center frame stuff always, but I think it's interesting to look at, especially with the foreground that you have in the bottom, and then the waterfall going up, leading into the tree lines. The trees are all vertical. So I think the lines in the photo are really cool. So good job on the composition.
Thank you.
Shutter speed. I don't know if you had a tripod and could get it even slower. Again, I know with old camera, like my camera now, I could do like a 1 second slow shutter without a tripod, and like it has sensor stabilization. Do some things, but I love a buttery waterfall, so you can see a bit at the bottom. It looks nice and smooth, and then as you get up top, it looks a little bit sharper. So a little bit slower of a shutter speed could have been cool. But I like the composition, so I think it's a great photo. And then maybe drop the blacks a little bit.
Okay.
Would be my like personal preference. I think some people like the matte faded filmy look, which I like for portraits and stuff, and then for landscapes I always feel like it needs some of that darkness, because it helps define a lot of the textures and the lines in the photo. So that's more personal preference. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but that would be my opinion.
It's amazing how huge these trees are and how huge this waterfall is, because if you look down at the bottom of the waterfall, there's a little gate, and that's part of like the pathway that you walk on.
It's crazy.
So like the gate is itty bitty and everything else is just so huge, and the trees are so huge.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's just crazy to even think
I think
it's that big.
Possible to like try and capture that scale. So like having a little person down there if possible, or wait till someone walks by just to get a better sense of actually how big that waterfall is, because it's you don't know how big the trees are, you don't know how big the waterfall is, but as soon as you put a person in the photo, then you get this like crazy sense of scale. So even if that person is itty bitty, I think it helps convey how big that waterfall is.
Excellent. We'll have another waterfall one for you.
Love it. Very cool. Yeah, I love the under angle of the waterfall. It's always good to try and get a little wet and hopefully don't drench the camera, but it's always worth it for the shot if possible. So I think visually it's a super cool photo, especially with the contrast of a brighter sky and darker image. Again, a little bit slower of a shutter speed could get some of those, you can see it sort of like tripping, versus you could get this like smooth streak, which I think would be like a pretty cool like artistic photo, because it almost looks like a wave coming down. So a little bit slower of a shutter speed. Movement would be cool.
Okay.
I wonder if I can see if your information is on here. Yeah, exposure time was a 1/200th of a second on the photo. So slowing that down to 1/30th is sort of like a happy medium. Usually you can get away, especially if the waterfall's moving super quickly like that. At 1/30th of a second, you can get some nice motion blur. So it's always good to try different things. You can also do some stacking, where you, like if you have a tripod, you can combine multiple images in the same frame that aren't on a slow shutter. Like if your camera's getting shaky and the rest of the image isn't sharp, you can stack a couple images in Photoshop and it will auto blend them, and it will give you that blurred look without having to do the slow shutter.
Awesome.
So something to experiment with.
Absolutely.
For sure. But I think cool composition and getting into those spots always makes for cool photos. Number 9. Now, where is this taken? Looks like a interesting landscape.
Yeah, this was taken, I can't exactly remember where, but when we go down to Portland, we usually road trip from Edmonton. So this is somewhere in the like middle of the road trip. Somewhere around the like Idaho, Oregon area.
Yeah. I was gonna say it looks like Idaho. We went there last summer
Yeah.
for a tourism project. It has these like interesting cliff valley things.
Yeah.
Which I think is like a super interesting landscape to look at.
Yeah, and this was just, there was a little rest area, and
Yeah.
you could walk down the little hill from the rest area, and there was a little viewpoint, which is right about here, and it was just a really
Yeah.
cool view.
Cool. Yeah, I like the layers and the depth to it when you have the foreground behind it, and then it comes into this bigger cliff face, and then you have some trees, and then the train tracks down below. So I think compositionally it's good to have that separation. If it was just like white sky behind that cliff face, it wouldn't look as epic. But I think seeing more of the landscape like that was a good composition. The fence you could maybe crop out of it, just
Okay.
cropping up on the bottom, just because then it's
Less distracting.
the idea of like man-made versus like in a landscape. Like when you're looking at a landscape,
Yeah.
you want to see more of the landscape and the beauty of the landscape versus something like industrial, like a fence.
That's fair.
So like the train track's sort of cool going into the tunnel, and then maybe just take out the fence potentially,
Okay.
just to clean it up just a little bit, and then I think you'd focus on the landscapes a little more, and then dropping the blacks again just to get a little bit more contrast in that face. I think could like pull you into the photo a little bit more.
Okay.
But I like the overall composition, and colors look good. So.
Awesome. Last one. I'll let you give me your thoughts, and then I'll tell you a little story about this one.
Okay, sounds good. Is this Hawaii?
It is not.
Not Hawaii, damn.
A lot of people think that, though.
Yeah, no, I don't. I think this is cool. I love the reflection in the tide pools. That was one of my favorite things. I was in Hawaii for 3 weeks in November,
Nice.
and like finding tide pool reflections. I was in Mexico and Mazatlan. We had the most insane sunset, and got reflections like this. So I think finding those reflections is amazing in terms of finding a cool composition. The colors look really cool. I think the exposure again on the blacks might be a little bit too low on this photo,
Okay.
where you lose out some of the detail in the rocks, like on the left side of the frame, and then sort of in the middle bottom
Okay.
of those rocks. It's hard to tell a lot of that information. So I think bringing the exposure up just a little bit might help the photo.
Okay.
And again, with the slow shutters, like when you have these crashing waves, you can get some really cool looks to the photo. And because the waves are moving in so quickly, that you can get it pretty easily without doing super slow shutter.
Mm-hmm.
So on the right side, how the waves are crashing over the rocks, you can get these cool looks where it just comes like over nice and smoothly.
Yep.
It's all blurred out. So I think that would be something to try. Just look pretty epic because it's such an epic sunset.
Yeah.
And an epic composition. So I think that slow shutter could really pull the photo in together. It'd be cool.
Awesome. Yeah. So I like this one because of the story behind it. So this was taken in Elmina, Ghana, which is in Northwest Africa. I was there for 6 weeks doing a design build project, once again in architecture school. And at the end of our trip, we were making it back to the major city where we had our flight from. And we made a couple stops along the way. And this was one of the cities on the coast that we stopped at, and we spent a couple nights there. So we were in these awesome little huts. And I had all of my curtains closed in this little hut, and I was sleeping, and somehow there was like this tiny little sliver in the curtain that was open for the light to come through. And the light came through first thing in the morning, and it just happened to hit my eyeball. Like anywhere else, it was fine. It beelined it right for my eyeball. So I woke up at a ridiculous hour. I don't even know what time it was, but it was a ridiculous hour in the morning. And this light was hitting my eye, and I was really comfortable, so I didn't want to just roll over. So I got up, and I was so mad because the light was hitting my eye, and I went to go close the curtain, and when I did, I looked outside and I saw all these beautiful colors and this great like sunrise and all the water, and I was like, well, dang it, now I have to go take pictures. And I was so mad the entire time because I was tired and I didn't want to be out there taking pictures. But I was like, I have to, it's too beautiful. So
but it's worth it.
It's so worth it. I was out there for over an hour just walking up and down the coast taking a bunch of pictures. So it was worth it, but
we're always waking up early for sunrise in the summer, and it was like we did one last summer. It was a 4 a.m. wake up for a sunrise hike, and then it's like, oh, you're so tired, you gotta go hike up the mountain, and then and you get up there and it's an epic sunrise. You're like, okay, it's always worth it.
Worth it at the end, but
worth it at
not
the
so
end.
much fun.
You might not realize that during it, but afterwards it's good.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for going over these. I really appreciate all your feedback. Definitely going to take those bits of feedback into my next adventures when I take more photos.
Do it.
So, in your mind, what makes a really good travel photo?
Really good travel photo. I think traveling and adventures, like, it's all about the moment and like the experience of it all. So being able to capture unique moments more than just a landscape photo, or something needs to be someone in the photo to tell a story, or that makes you think, like the idea of nostalgia when you're looking back on photos and being able to capture that sort of feeling. So a lot of the times, whether it's a subject or it's movement or something unique, I think of some of my favorite ones are from San Diego, of this place called Torrey Pines, and they have a hang gliding place.
Nice.
And then so these guys would just run off the edge of the cliff with these parachutes on and just like float around, and they'd come right over top of you.
That's crazy.
And those are some of the favorite photos I've ever taken, because it was just a unique moment that we happened to go there when the wind was right, and then we had a beautiful sunset. And it was a moment that is not easy to recreate. It's one thing to just go shoot a landscape, but when there's that uniqueness and the wow factor to it, then I think that really makes for a powerful image.
Awesome. So when you're out taking photos in different places, do you do a lot of planning ahead of time for what you're going to capture, or do you do a lot of stuff in the moment?
I think a lot of times it's more in the moment, because when you're doing research before you get to a place, you're looking at other people's images and getting inspiration from other people, versus when you're there, it's more in the moment, and it's about finding a creative composition. Or I like to shoot through objects quite a bit, or find those reflections by getting way down, and just try to take a different photo than what other people would take. And part of that is being in the moment and looking around. It's looking down, it's looking up, it's looking behind you, to really figure out what the ideal composition is, versus just going to a lookout like Moraine Lake. Everyone takes the same photo of Moraine Lake from up top where the lookout is, versus going down. We've hiked up and shot down on Moraine Lake. It's like this crazy view. So just trying to switch up the perspective, and I think a lot of times that comes from being at the location. So showing up early, getting the compositions that you like, and then when the light is good, being able to shoot it really quickly.
Awesome. Okay, so when you're traveling for personal pleasure, whatever you want to do, what kind of gear do you bring with you?
I always travel with all my gear. My camera bag weighs about 30 pounds. So it's pretty heavy. I keep buying new ones because I keep buying more gear, so it fills up, and then I have to buy another backpack and then another backpack. So I bought one for Nepal, which is like a hiking camera bag.
Mm-hmm.
That is massive. It fits a lot of stuff. And then I just bought the Peter McKinnon one when that arrives. But my kit right now is a Sony A7 III, and then I have a Sony 20mm 1.8, a 35mm 1.8, a 85 1.8, Tamron 28 to 75 2.8, and then a Sony 70 to 200 f4, and then I have a 60-inch MacBook, and then an iPad and a microphone for YouTube videos, and then I always carry a gimbal with me as well.
So you take it all with you everywhere you go.
Shooting videos. It's
awesome.
I like doing one clippers on my Instagram.
Yeah,
is what I like to call it, and I almost think of it as like a moving photo because it's only one clip, one composition that I like to post on Instagram, and it's about capturing that moment. And I think sometimes video can help tell that story because it's not a frame; it's 100 frames or something.
Yeah.
So I always bring the gimbal just for some of those one clipper moments of walking to the edge of a cliff or a reflection or skateboarding or something like that. So I think
absolutely
the bag gets pretty heavy. So usually I hike with a full bag, except maybe a laptop.
Yeah. Sounds like that would be
all the camera gear is nice to bring.
Yeah, just in case you need it.
Just in case, exactly.
So this is more of a personal question. Do you prefer to travel somewhere warm or somewhere cold?
Warm for sure. I'm not against the cold, but when you're a photographer, videographer, your cameras don't like to work in the cold. Gimbals especially will freeze and the motors just won't work properly. So we've had a couple times where it's been cold and holding your hands on a metal camera and a metal body is also not ideal. So that definitely warm, above zero if possible. But I've seen some footage recently of guys that went to the North Pole and we're looking at icebergs and they're sailing through the North Pole and it looks like a very cool experience.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think ideally somewhere nice and warm and go to Mexico and have fun and drink beers on the beach, but open to anything.
Excellent. So one more question on my list is, what's your favorite place that you've been to? And once all this virus stuff is behind us, what's the first place you're going to travel to?
That's a tough question. I really want to go to Nepal. This photo is actually from Nepal. My mom was there during the earthquake 5 years ago.
Wow.
So and she's been twice. My uncle's been 3 times. And that project was going to be doing some documentary video work for an organization there. So I was pretty bummed to not go on that trip. So if all things clear up in international travel school and we can reschedule that trip, I would be very excited for that trip. I also have a friend in Scotland that I've been wanting to go visit, so I think that would be a very cool trip to go to. In terms of my favorite trip ever, probably Mazatlan in Mexico.
Okay.
I think Mazatlan's a very unheard of destination in Mexico. Everyone goes to Cancun, Puerto Vallarta, Mayan Riviera. Mazatlan's a little bit smaller, and I think we had a much more authentic sort of Mexican cultural experience on top of there's a beautiful beach and a pool and all inclusive, and the food was incredible. It's the seafood capital of Mexico.
Oh, nice.
So all the seafood, or most of the seafood from Mexico, comes through Mazatlan. So the tuna and the shrimp and all that was really cool, and just the experience that we had with our guide for a week was incredible. So I think Mazatlan has been my favorite of recent for sure.
Awesome. That's great. Well, that's the end of my questions, unless you have anything else that you want to add? Can you let us know where to find you?
Yeah, so if you guys want to check out some of my work, you can follow me on Instagram at Mark Webster, M-A-R-C. And then on YouTube as well, I like to do some tutorials for video editing and photo editing and talk a little bit about gear. So my channel is just Mark Webster as well. So,
excellent, and I'll link all that stuff in the description so people can find you really easily.
Perfect.
Excellent. Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I had a blast. It was fun to review your amazing photos.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate all your time.
No problem.
Thanks so much for joining me, guys. It was a super awesome call. Thank you again to Mark for being on the call with us. Like I said, all his info will be linked in the description below if you want to go check out some of his work. Every time I scroll across one of his Instagram photos, I immediately want to go wherever that may be. So he's an excellent photographer, excellent filmmaker, and go check out his work. Until next time, thanks for joining me. Bye.